Welcome to the Griefy Girls Book Club, where every month we dive into a griefy read. From memoirs to biographies to fantasy, romance, and beyond. If it touches on grief, it's fair game. We're your hosts. I'm Kendall Rogers.
And I'm Rachel Dwyer. You might know us from our podcast, Two Girls with Grief. For us, reading is both healing and a powerful way to explore grief. So we knew it was time to give it the attention it truly deserves. Join us as we unpack our favorite moments, chat about upcoming reads, and even host interviews with guest authors. And you can bet we'll be yapping about our ever-growing TBR piles too.
So, whether you're here for the books, the banter, or a little bit of both, we're so glad to have you with us. Let's read, reflect, and grow in our grief together. So we're at the end of the book. It was a short stint. We only had 5 chapters. I feel like it sums it up. It sums it up, and we leave Michelle's memoir in a good place. I think, like, overall, what are your thoughts?
Was a roller coaster. I feel like after the last chapters, like the big chunk chapters, this was 5. In the sense of just like I didn't cry. It was related to things, but it wasn't like gut wrenching and bringing me back into these like really deep moments. Like the
Yeah.
last chapters were, like the bulk of the book was. So these were wrapping it up nicely, which I feel like doesn't usually happen in a memoir type style.
Right. Yeah.
I like the book, but yeah, definitely wasn't expecting it to make me feel all the things that I feel. What
Yeah.
about you?
Yeah, I think she is leaving us as much as she possibly can with a happy ending. Obviously, like, something she still continues with, but love that she includes like the places where she sees her mom and things. And we'll kind of dive into like how she sees her mom in her dreams, and she's seeing her in just different places, and how her mom's, like, I guess, is still resonating after she's gone, and she still feels that love from her mom after her loss. So I think, like, that's such a beautiful perspective of it. You could tell, like, she's done her work on trying to heal from this. But yeah, I think it's a very, like, beautiful, kind of optimistic as you can considering the situation.
Yeah, I remember like the chapters, so we're going through chapters 16 through 20, and it opens up with like basically her dad getting into a car accident, and she doesn't say it outright, but basically you get the idea that the dad basically got a DUI, but didn't because they just told the cop that the mom just passed away, and the cop let it go, and they didn't actually test him, but she just kind of alluded to that he was driving drunk, and maybe he had wanted to for it to end up badly because he wasn't handling her mom passing away. And the thing that she mentioned during that was that her dad, he was injured from the accident, and he had to have all these different like medications. And she mentioned that it was a lot of similar medications that her mom had, and she just was like checking him every so often, but she just wasn't in a place to caretake for him. Being a little bit of anger because like he did it,
Yeah.
himself, like it was his choice, and that's always a dangerous thing to do anyway. But and also like she didn't have her in her to caretake anymore, which I feel very relatable after like caretaking for so many people. Just don't know that I could enter another situation to do that again.
Yeah. And I particularly related with, same thing with the anger that she had towards her dad, but kind of in the fact that he was being reckless. And I don't know if you feel this way, but for especially my siblings, I now stress to them, like, it is your responsibility now to be in charge of yourself, and you keep yourself healthy and keep yourself out of trouble, because if you put yourself in a situation causes me more grief than the grief we're already in, I'm gonna be pissed. I'm gonna be so mad because we've already been through so much, and why would you impose that heartbreak on me again? And so I kind of feel a little bit this selfishness of wanting the people that I love around me to, like, take care of themselves and keep themselves keep themselves alive, because same thing, like I can't go through like this again. I'm like, it is your earnest for me, you know?
I mean, I guess because I already have lost more
Yeah,
people that I don't think about it that way.
probably because you're more mature in your grief, and I'm still still working through my.
I mean, I don't have much left, so but yeah, I think it's one of those things that's happened already. I've experienced it. Obviously, I don't want to lose anybody else.
Yeah.
But I think because I feel like my worst nightmare of things that could happen have happened,
Mhm.
it's not something I might have mental capacity to even think about.
Yeah.
So thankfully, it's not something that I do. I'm sure that's something that people that have lost as many people as me might. I feel like it's a very easy way like to hyper focus on something.
Right. Yeah.
You can definitely connect those dots, but thankfully that is not something I've picked up. But also, I feel like I'm it's done like the worst of the worst things. So yeah, shouldn't. Let's not do anything else, world. Let's not do anything else.
We'll just pump the brakes.
Yeah. But I did find it interesting because she did go to something that was nice that she went for her honeymoon. She went to Korea and she went to all of the places that her mom wanted to take her one last time. I thought that was really nice. I always think about it in the sense of, hey, I'm Filipino American. And without my parents, I'm like, do I go back to the Philippines? It's a totally different experience going back without having parents that grew up there and know the language and just kind of the disconnect.
Yeah.
And so it was interesting to read that she did go back. She also doesn't really understand Korean, and she went back and she traveled and got to go to the night markets and experience the things her mom wanted her to. So it's something that I think about, but I just like I don't know how I feel about it personally going back there without my parents. I definitely think
Yeah.
that will be something that feels really sad. Um, I don't know your thoughts on that trip.
Yeah, I loved how she is so transparent about the relationship with her aunt, and she's very vulnerable with herself and being like, I wish I learned Korean, like my mom was right. I shouldn't have been such a brat trying to get out of my Korean classes. Because I think like she's now understanding how full circle this is, and she was able to communicate with her aunt in Korea. She would have probably more in depth and heartfelt conversations about, her mom and for her aunt, her sister. But I think even with Michelle describing the experience, it sounds like the love that they have for each other transcended the language barrier. And I love that the line where they're translating to each other, and she's like, I don't want to be a burden, I don't want to impose on you. And her aunt is like, blood ties. And I think it just like as simple as that is like, you're my niece, like you're always welcome here. And that like they hold hands while they were eating the soup that shared in both North Korea and South Korea. And I thought that was like such a beautiful kind of representation of like, not only did she lose her mom, but her aunt has lost both her sisters now. And so like it probably meant so much to her that Michelle went and visited and stayed with her. So I like that she included this other perspective of her aunt in the story.
It's obviously something about my family in the Philippines that I do know that I'm like, will I ever go see them again? I'm not sure. But it was interesting and how she was able to do that. I saw also parallels of like her not learning the language and going to school. It's very common for Filipinos to not be taught the language for
Hmm.
whatever reason. Like all the Asians, I feel like Filipinos are one of them that don't. Could be, the hundreds of years of colonization that affected
Yeah.
that decision. But I feel like it is very common for the people I know. Like Filipinos in particular. Not that it doesn't affect other Asians or other people, but yeah. So I related to that. Something that I really also related to her was her hyper focusing on just making Korean food and kind of connecting to her mom. That's also something that I really connected to as well because something that I'm still trying to learn how to make food. That like
Yeah.
learning what my mom's favorite foods were and making them, and I just like wish I knew more of her food. So I really related to that part as well of just trying to feel connected in some way and through the culture is something that I'm still trying to learn. And like, there's always new recipes and stuff. And I'm trying to find recipes for my mom's friends and, well, she doesn't have any more siblings, but, as friends or anyone that knew her, if they knew her favorite foods. And it's been fun to learn. So definitely related to a lot in Michelle's story.
Yeah, I think like when she mentioned, before when I would eat kimchi, I might have left a little on my plate, and now I eat all of it because I know how hard it is or how long it takes to make kimchi. And I think that's like such a interesting example to apply to life, in that when you're younger, you kind of just is like, whatever. But as you get older, these moments that you've kind of lived through are more meaningful. And you kind of see that with her mom of like all these, she finds the pictures in the kimchi bottles and kimchi jars, and you see her have a whole new like perspective of her mom that she didn't have before, both like with her mom behind the camera lens and how her mom saw her, as well as like what her mom looked like when she was younger. I really loved that. I love that she found all these pictures. Were they in the kimchi jars? Did I read
I
that right?
think it was in the kimchi maker or like fridge, but I think
Okay.
it was in like the paste that she used to make kimchi. So I think it was like in jars. Yeah, I'm really fascinated like seeing photos of like my parents when they're younger and kind of seeing how they lived life and everything. I think that's really cool to see just them as just like adults without children and how they live their life. To me, that's
Yeah.
always cool. And I know, I think I'm jumping some chapters, but I know at one point her aunt told her that her mom liked this band, I think, and there's something with coffee in the name, and her mom and her aunt used to dress up and sing it and perform it when they were kids, and I thought that was nice. It's like something she learned about her mom, and I think even it's something that her mom didn't disclose to her. It was something like that connected them because she is a
Yeah.
performer and sings. So yeah, I think it's always cool to kind of learn about them before, especially because my dad had depression. Like to seeing old photos of him when he looked happy and traveling. To me are always special. I like wish I knew that guy
Yeah.
because he had like my dad did always have the best advice, even if I don't think he took his own advice, but like he had the best advice. And I think part of it was like from the life he lived before he got really depressed and traveled a lot and stuff. So I thought that was cool. And one thing I don't know if we talked about her mom having she kept having dreams of her mom
Yeah.
and mentioning that they were super traumatic and seeing her mom like in different scenarios where her mom was still sick and she'd find her. And I know that I don't know if you've ever had dreams of your dad like that.
Yeah, I do.
And it's always weird, and I always wonder what it means when I have dreams, especially like specifically my sister. If she's healthy, or if it was like after her coma, or like
Yeah.
what she looks like. I always wonder what that means. And it was interesting that like her dreams were all of her mom sick. Have you had experiences of that with your dad?
Yeah. I always hope that I get the good dreams of him younger and healthier and kind of in his prime. But I seem to have, obviously, I think it's my brain trying to comprehend the traumatic experience of seeing my dad in his ill state. And, like you and I have talked about, like maybe the funeral process isn't the best for everybody in their healing. Seeing him in the casket is something that sticks with me in my dreams. And it's a very saddening feeling. It's very like, sometimes it's a jump scare. Sometimes you're shocked in your dream because like you're like, my God, my dad's dead. Like what happened? Or sometimes it's like I know already and I just have a feeling of like shame or letdown that I didn't do my job well enough. So it just drudges up all these feelings again when you have these like flashbacks of these people when they're not in their best health.
I mean, I don't know if I've watched too many scary movies, but even just like the feeling of walking up to a casket, makes me feel like someone's gonna sit out. Like it's like I just like feel like something scary is gonna happen, but in reality, the scary thing is just seeing your loved one in there and no longer here, no longer able to talk to you. So that's really the jump scare is
Yeah.
the actual reality of it. But yeah, I just I relate so much to those dreams, but I was just curious like of how hers were so always so traumatic.
Mhm.
That I have had those dreams with like even in the dream you realize like, oh, she's gone, or oh, they're, having that, it's a very weird place to be in your dreams where something
Yeah.
clicks, or you realize, or you feel like you wake up and they're still here. Like there's very weird, I think there's a very weird connection of dreams and reality,
Mm.
and I don't know I'll ever understand it because that was always, it's such a weird thing, but it's interesting when other people
Yeah.
have kind of similar experiences. And she was wondering in the book, like, does this my mom visiting me? Like, what does this mean? What is she trying
Yeah.
to tell me? But I did like how she connected seeing those photos of her mom. I think it was what made her think about it was I need to stop hyper focusing on my mom being like sick.
Mm.
Remember her as also like healthy.
Yeah.
I'm curious of like that worked. If like
Yeah.
challenging, like
Michelle, please email us. Let us know if it worked.
because I think it's one thing to like to feel that or want that, and another thing for it to actually possible. Like I
Yeah.
don't know. Thankfully, I don't have like even when my sister like I see her and she's kind of like post coma instead of like before she got sick at all. She's still always coming off as sick. If that makes sense. Like she still seems fine. So I think that's good. I mean, and hers dreams did sound very traumatic from talk from like reading through it. And but I was surprised after all of that, after how many tears I shed during like the middle portion of the book.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, her at the end, her song picked up. She's able to quit her corporate job. Her essay got like posted in like the New York Times or something. Like she
Yeah.
won some essay thing, which I think led to her writing her book. And then she got so popular, she was able to do a tour and make money from it. And her husband was able to join the tour, and she's doing well, like with her music and her dream. And she said that she thinks it's her mom sending her good things. And I was like, that's so nice. And I'm like, where's my family? I like sending. How do I get all of my army family members to send that to me as well? But I don't know why. I guess because it was so sad. I wasn't expecting it to end so happy, even though like I'm happy, happy, and her life is doing as best as possible. I mean, as we know, like grief doesn't just go away. It's not like she's just where her mom passed away
Yeah.
just because her life is turning around in a lot of ways. Yeah, it is interesting. I was kind of like, oh, this is such a happy note after I like was bawling in the
Yeah.
middle of her chapters
Yeah.
and just like thinking of like really tough situations. But I was surprised, pleasantly surprised. I'm happy for her because there were some things that even were more traumatic, I think, for her situation.
Yeah. And I think like it goes into what we talked about one episode about kind of like those coexisting feelings. And I don't think she emphasizes it enough, like the grief that exists during these happy times. I think she's kind of illustrating like I've gone through so much trauma with my mom, but now as I'm grieving and going through all her stuff, and I love when she's like selling her family house and she's like, I hope my mom haunts the house of whoever lives here next. And I was just like, I had this same feeling when I was selling our house. I was like, I hope it's haunted. I hope whoever moves in next has a haunted house.
It's a really weird thing. And something we didn't mention was like selling your house or your family
Yeah.
lived, and then also like going through their stuff is also really hard. It's
Yeah.
really hard to decide what to keep, what not to keep. I'm trying to like slowly still get rid of stuff. Like I try to think of my mom because my mom would be just like get rid of it. Like,
Mhm.
but it is different because I know my mom was the type to like just get rid of stuff, like clear out. I remember when my sisters passed away, my mom was like, "Oh, keep her phone and keep it forever," which is like totally opposite of kind of her mentality. So I think she'd have a hard time with this still, like,
Yeah.
with like getting rid of people's stuff. So yeah, that's hard, especially going through like two parents and a sister stuff is hard. But
Yeah, you
yeah,
must have a
that
lot of things collected up.
do have a good amount of things. So I'm like, I don't know if I have space for everything. But it's interesting, and I'm also like, I kind of want like a part two,
Hmm.
like, of
Yeah.
like where she is now, because you did bring up a good point. If she didn't mention kind of like happiness of where her life is going, how it feel with grief? Because I think
Yeah.
that's also a big portion of grief is happy moments feel different. A lot of things just feel different
Hmm.
once you've experienced grief. So I do wonder, like now that she's kind of reaching these pinnacles of success and reaching all her dreams, like how does it feel without her mom? Not that
Yeah.
she owes us that information, but I am interested because you feel like that's something where it's like when you reach something, you're like, oh, that's really hard. When you're like,
Yeah.
I wish they were here and give me advice. But I think it is nice for a book to, or at least even for just for people to read a story about grief and know that good things can still come to your life. I think that's a good takeaway from the book is like your life doesn't need to end, even if it feels like it might. Like when
Yeah.
something so hard happens, like good things can still happen and you can still attract good things. So I think that was a good
Is
message
it is
in her
almost
book.
like she goes through this horrific experience with her mom, and then she's kind of in that immediate like phase of when you're just like everything's a blur. But then she gets like the pizza job, and that's almost like the low point of like, okay, I'm grieving my mom. I'm having to go through all this stuff. Like, I don't know how to comprehend all these emotions. And then like you're in the part where like, her and her husband are going to New York, and she's like, we have to get corporate jobs now because our dreams didn't come
Yeah.
true. And I'm sure like so many people out there feel that way when it's like, but then she becomes a rock star. So
Yeah. And then it
it's
works
like
out.
when, yeah, and like obviously we don't know that timeline because she was living it, but it's kind of like when are everybody who knows where they are in that cycle? Like, are you at the very low point where you're working at the
Yeah.
pizza place, or are you like in that moment of rock stardom, hypothetically?
And she said that she was working at the pizza store to just keep busy and not think about anything.
Yeah.
I definitely relate to that because I
Yeah.
worked at a juice shop after my sister passed away because I just needed to not sit with the sadness,
Yeah.
not just sit with like everything that's going on because everyone was just going back to everything is normal and I was just sad. I was just like this everything sucks. Like
Yeah.
and so I definitely relate to that. Of like you need a job that just keeps you busy and you don't have to think about certain stuff. Not that a job like that isn't hard and it's like those jobs can be very tough and demanding, but a lot of it is repetitive. So I think that's where it was just like good for her to like just keep busy and not think
Yeah.
about it. I do find it very interesting to read people's grief stories.
Mm.
Or usually it's been through fictional, but it is
Yeah.
interesting like a real life one. Something I mean I'm sure they exist, but at least I haven't read fictional ones that go like this dark in places. Uh, I feel like you really have to experience it to be able to go this
Yeah.
deep. But I overall definitely get what people recommended the book. I just for some reason expected to be happier, and I don't know why I expected that. I don't know why that was my expectation whatsoever. It was about more about grief, but for some reason I did expect it to not hit me so much.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's also a book that if you haven't gone through such an experience, it's not gonna hit you that hard. Like it's almost like reading or watching a movie with death, or it's like it's not gonna tug those personal strings. But I think for people who've gone through death and grief, it like whips you upside the head. It's like, oh, like you're going through every emotion again. And
I mean, I still think about this scene with her when her dressing her mom
yeah,
after he passed away.
clearly she did too, because she even brought up like her eyes popping open was
Uh,
traumatic for her.
would no. She said she was wailing in that part. I would give up. I wouldn't be able to do that after if that happened.
Right. I'm like, I've done the best I can.
I'm only a girl. I'm just a girl trying to live
Girlhood.
my life. Just trying to live my life. That would gut me. Like that would no, I wouldn't be able to do that. But yeah, I mean, I think with grief you feel so alone and isolated. Like this is the only thing happening to me, and it's weird when you're like, oh, so many things happened to her that happened to me. So
Yeah.
I guess I'm not special with it.
Well, and I'm happy to hear that you related a lot more to other parts of the book that I don't think I ever could have related to. Like we talked in the last episode, so much of her cultural upbringing and her being half Korean adds so much context and color to her experience. And I love when she had brought up she goes to the Korean spa, like the way she did with her mom, and talks about the experience of being younger, she didn't feel American enough, and that was all she wanted was just to feel less, out of sorts. And then she's in this Korean spa, and she was wanting this approval from I guess, an esthetician. Um, she's asking her, "Oh, are you Korean?" And Michelle can tell, like, she's trying to, like, guess how Korean.
Yeah.
She's now having a very reverse feeling of, am I Korean enough without my mom being around? Or, where do I stand in all this now?
I mean, I definitely relate to that feeling of just going into Filipino spaces, especially going back to the Philippines. But there's so many different things where I'm like, it just feels weird because I don't have that gateway, like that step into Filipino things.
Yeah.
And especially in the country, it's just I have traveled like inside the country alone. I have traveled there alone, like meeting family, but it's definitely weird knowing like I don't have my mom to call or my dad if I need thing
Yeah.
or have a question or have an emergency. So it's definitely weird. You do feel like obviously I already feel like an orphan, but you feel like almost like an orphan to your culture, which is
Yeah.
why I relate to a lot of things of her trying to like learn how to make foods and connect that way because you're just trying to like find things that make you feel connected to the culture you grew up with. But yeah, it is hard because I didn't like cooking until I probably got older. So I didn't really cook that much with my mom, so I didn't like learn a lot of recipes. So I'm learning recipes from like websites, and I think she even is like watching a YouTube
Yeah, she
channel.
has the food influencer that she likes to watch.
Yeah, and so like I learned from watching, whether it's YouTube or just looking up recipes. So I definitely relate to a lot of things that she was doing to kind of reconnect and learn in whatever way possible.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
Yeah. Well, that's the book, and I hope y'all who are
Phew.
reading along enjoyed it.
Yeah, I hope that if you're experiencing grief and reading this, that I don't know what I hope. I hope
That
that
that it maybe helps more than harms, but
yeah,
it
that
might
maybe you
harm.
didn't cry as much as I did going through it, but I am interested if you are like Korean or just kind of have some experiences if you felt the same connection to the book as well. But yeah, the next pick we're going to announce September 23rd. We're taking a week off in between and we're going to announce our next book. Spoiler alert, it will be a little bit happier because I'm choosing it. And
Kendall's
Kendall's
cut off
picks,
from picking sad books.
Kendall's picks might always be a little bit sadder than mine. Just letting everybody know. That's just kind of in the pattern and from discussing books that we just even read in our free time. Hers just might be darker. So
Cast your votes in the comments now. Are you a
yeah.
happy book or a sad book person?
Yeah. So I lean towards like some happiness in there, which mine will be. I think I already have it picked out, so but I won't mention it just yet. But mine is definitely a lot happier. Kendall's pick.
Which is good because we
Different.
need some lightness after
Yes.
reading
And
crying.
fiction, and it'll go back to fictional grief, which I feel like is my safety domain of reading about grief. So
Love that. We love a little escapism.
Yes. So again, as always, follow us on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Two Girls with Grief Pod. Email us at twogirlswithgrief@gmail.com. We love to hear from you. We love all the messages and things people send. We appreciate it. And yes, please join us for this book club. It's been actually very therapeutic for me
Yeah,
personally,
good.
even though I definitely cried a lot. It was therapeutic. Definitely like dissected so many experiences I had in weird
Yeah.
ways that it made
Yeah.
me think about things. But
I
yeah,
don't know how to
besides,
describe that to people
yeah,
who haven't gone through it because the way she does describe her grief is very, I think, relatable to people who are grieving.
and I feel like I have like blacked out, forgotten pieces, and that definitely brought me back. I was like, oh no, that happened, and that was traumatic. And thank you for reminding me.
Thank you, Michelle. We appreciate it.
Yeah, so check back on September 23rd. We'll be back with our next series. We read this one pretty fast. It's a pretty short read, I'd say.
Yeah.
Yeah, last week. If you watched last week's episode, yeah, I don't know if I even cried just going over it again. It was hard. It was a tough.
We decided to do all the heavy stuff in one episode. Like,
Yeah,
knock
I
it
was
out.
like going through these chapters. I was like, that's it. I'm not bawling. I'm okay.
Wait, things are getting better?
Was like, what? There's a happy ending? What's going on? I was so confused after reading those other chapters. Like, you didn't just take me through an emotional roller coaster where I am hugging my dog for safety and reassurance.
I do want to like look in through her like discography and listen to her music and see like how her grief is manifesting through music.
Yeah, I don't know. The one song that I know sounds very upbeat, but I haven't listened to the lyrics. And sometimes sometimes an upbeat song is actually very sad
Yeah.
lyrically. So I don't know for sure, but the song that I do know of hers, which I don't even know the name, is that like sounds happy to me,
And
at least.
did you look at pictures of her by chance?
Yes.
She's cute. I was like, this girl's so cute. She's quirky and she's cute, and I love her costumes.
She looks like a rock star.
She does, definitely. I was like, I love the vibe that she was giving off.
I feel like it wasn't the vibe from just like her name. For some reason, her name, well, it sounds very white.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. And so I think like going into it, that wasn't what I pictured. And it was good. I think I looked her up fairly early on reading, so
Okay.
I was able to change my original thought to what she looked like. Because yeah, I mean when you're half Asian, I feel like it can go either way. But I feel like I have Korean friends.
Mhm.
In my experience, Korean genes are really strong. Like, I feel like a lot of times if you're half Asian, sometimes you could look. You just never know how it's gonna turn out. But I feel like
Yeah.
Korean genes are extremely strong.
And shout out again to our 75 percenters out there because we need
yeah.
more recognition out there for Miss
Yeah.
Rachel over here.
Have you ever watched actually John and Kate plus 8? I'm pretty sure he's Korean.
Oh my God, man, they were in the media for like ever for a while, and I
Yeah.
totally forgot they existed.
And their
I wonder how those
kids
kids are.
I don't know how they're doing, but their kids are only 25% Asian.
Oh, we should do a whole episode on them.
Yeah, and
What happened to John and Kate plus 8?
But their kids, to me, if I just saw them, I would think like, oh, they're half Asian. But because I think the dad was, they might even be less than that. I think the dad was half, maybe.
Oh, I didn't know. I just knew
The
like,
dad might even be half because he looks like he's mixed. So that means like his kids are even less,
mhm.
which I can
If
think.
you are
Yeah,
one of the 8,
please let us know.
please answer our question. No, just
That
kidding.
was another example, a public example of what I mean by I think Korean genes are really strong. Strong people.
Strong people.
Good, strong people, good food.
Review of the book. Growing at H Mart, strong people and good food.
I mean, there's so much like ending her book and just the food alone. I'm like, oh my God, I want.
The food alone was a character. The food alone was a paid actor. The food alone told a show.
I was getting hungry. Reading that at night was not a good idea. I'm like, I just want.
No,
all
she's
the
talking
things
about making
about.
kimchi, and I'm like, damn, I don't have any kimchi on me right now. Like, what a shame.
No, I definitely don't. But yeah, I mean, Korean food's really good. There's a Korean place near me, so should definitely
We
go.
should.
Yes. If you don't know, spoiler, we haven't actually met in person. So we're gonna.
Yeah, we've never met in person.
I was watching this episode. You get the tea. We actually haven't met in person.
No, we're not in the same space.
Yeah. And Kendall's actually coming to San Francisco, so we will be meeting.
So
person,
excited.
And we're gonna get Korean food.
We're gonna get Korean food.
Yes.
And yeah, it's gonna, and we're gonna talk about grief.
We should learn how.
We should have have a travel vlog.
Yeah, we
Grief and
should.
traveling.
Grief and travel. That's our next series.
Yeah.
That'll just be a fun series.
You know,
Should
there's
figure that
something
out.
to it. She was doing
There
it.
is.
She was traveling. Like, I think that was her advice as well.
Yeah.
She
Our
went to
next idea.
Vietnam. She went to Korea. She went back to Korea.
I actually do feel very at peace traveling. So it's our next idea. Copyright. Touch it.
Don't take our idea.
We
find
know.
you.
We know. We're watching you. All right. Well, I think we have shared enough about this book and our thoughts. Yes, September 23. Catch us for the next book. It will be lighter because it is my pick. And yes, thank you for everyone for watching these episodes.
Yeah, thank you so much. We'll see you next time.